Welcome to the Jewish Education Experience podcast with your hosts, Yasmina and Ari, who will be uncovering gems of wisdom with Jewish educators from around the world.
To our audience, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support, and we appreciate you sharing our podcast with others also. Please consider supporting our podcast financially by contributing via Zelle, jewisheducationpodcast@gmail.com, or by joining our Patreon community, www.patreon.com/Jewish Education Experience Podcast. And to all of you Jewish educators and students of Jewish education around the world, chizchu ve'imtzu. May you be strengthened and encouraged in your holy endeavors. Please remember to hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast may not necessarily be those of the hosts. Our guest today is Dina Eliezer. Dina is currently a teacher at a charter school in Philadelphia, and we actually are longtime colleagues, and we worked together several years ago at Temple Beth Sholom in Cherry Hill, and we'll let Dina tell us a little bit more about her. Hello, Dina. How are you? Welcome
Hello.
to the podcast, and thank you for being with us here today.
Hello. Thank you so much for asking me to be here today.
And I just met Dina, but she's absolutely wonderful already. So
Thank you. Thank you.
So Dina, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you began your journey in education.
Okay. So my journey in education in general is started with my desire as a child to be a teacher. And later on, I grew up in Israel. I was born in Turkey, but I was 2 months old when my parents immigrated to Israel. So I grew up in Israel. And I grew up in a very secular home, but very traditional home, Sephardic traditional home. I like to say it all the time because when you're in America, it's very important to mention it. But living in Israel, I never stepped a foot in a synagogue. And I paid for it during my life in the United States because I almost lived in the synagogue right here in the United States.
Wow.
It's so different, isn't it?
It's very different. But, I didn't know anything about synagogue in Israel altogether. I mean, we celebrated holidays traditionally, and I was fortunate to grow up in Israel in a time where we studied the Bible 5 days a week, which means every day, and that we learned about all the holidays. It doesn't happen today in Israel, unfortunately. I mean, in the high school, Bible study became elective or very, very limited. And holidays are not being taught the way we learn them.
Wow.
So
do you know why that changed?
I don't really know specifically why it changed, but it was a process of change.
Okay.
And it could be many changes because of changes in the society, maybe changes in the political environment as well, with the religious parties and so forth not being very, very strong as they used to be. Could be many reasons. I don't really know because I wasn't involved with that. But like I said, I was very fortunate because when I finished high school, I knew the Bible very, very well. And I actually, even though I graduated in math and physics from high school, Bible studies were something that I really appreciated and liked a lot. And so after I married in Israel, my husband is French, he's not Israeli. And after we got married, we lived in France for several years. And then we came to the United States for the simple reason that my husband needed to find a job. And one important thing to say is that when I was a child in Israel, I was very active as a Girl Scout, and I had a lot of friends, very involved in the community. And when I got married and I left Israel, I was excommunicated from all of my friends because because they couldn't believe that I'm leaving Israel. How can you do something like that? And I was just a young woman who was very excited to travel. And for me, it was like, and I kept saying to them, my home is Israel. I'm not going. I'm going to see the world. That's all. And so it was a little difficult because really I lost a lot of friends because of that. But I made it a mission that wherever it is that I go, I will spread the love for Israel, and I will teach the language. And that's what I did. In France, when we arrived in France, I taught over there. I even started a small school in a small village where I lived. They had few families, so I had a baby who was 2 months old when we arrived to this village, and we made an agreement with the families there that they will come and pick up my daughter and take her out while I teach their kids in the dining room table.
Oh my God.
So we did it for a whole year actually, and then we came to the United States, and the first thing that I did when I came here was go to a synagogue. That's where they told me that all the Jewish people are, and because of my passion for education, I obviously started as a volunteer teaching in a synagogue because I didn't have the visa for work, so I just volunteered for a couple of years, and that's where my journey here in the United States as a Jewish educator started. And then I taught more and more until I came to Cherry Hill. And I got the position as assistant to the director at Temple Beth Sholom. And after a year, Norma Siegel, who was the director then, she called me to her office and she said, Dina, you're very, very talented and you can do much, much more. The only thing is that you have to go back to school and you have to get a master's degree. So at that time, I didn't even have a bachelor's degree because I was traveling. So everywhere I went, I took classes in the university. So I signed up to Gratz College for a master's degree in Jewish education in the administration track. And they told me that if I finish my bachelor's degree before my master's degree, they'll give me the master's degree. So I graduated with my bachelor's degree in December, and I graduated with my master's degree the same year in June. And then Norma Siegel retired, as you know, and I took over and was there for 12 years as a director.
Okay.
And then I worked for 4 years in Dallas, Texas, at Congregation She'erit Israel. And then when I came back to Cherry Hill, because I really missed my family, I was offered a position as a preschool director at Bethel, and there I worked for 2 years.
Okay. And
then I decided my husband started traveling, and I decided that I really want to join him, and that's what I did. I traveled with him because of his job for a couple of years, and I missed teaching. I missed the children in the classroom, and I found out about this charter school that teaches Hebrew, and the story of this charter school is very interesting because the people that started the charter school are the same people who give money for the birthright. And apparently the reason they do this charter school where they teach Hebrew is really to introduce Israel and the Hebrew language as a country, not from the religious aspect. And I found it very interesting and very, very, I was very curious about this whole thing. So I applied for the job and I really love it. I mean, it's an amazing environment. I teach 4 kindergarten classes, Hebrew, and they're adorable. I have 110 students, and I love each and one of them, and they're very excited to learn Hebrew. It's unbelievable.
Awesome.
So when you teach them Hebrew, do you teach them like modern Hebrew the way it would be taught to the same age in Israel, or do you teach like biblical Hebrew?
Absolutely. I teach Hebrew the way it is spoken in Israel. We've been teaching through Zoom. Actually, on Monday, we're going back to class for the first time. But this whole year, we were teaching through Zoom. So all of the videos that I introduced to them and everything that I was using was all coming from Israel with Israeli children. We teach also once or twice a month. We have a culture lesson in which we bring a cultural, it's in English. I mean, most of the lesson I speak in Hebrew, it's Hebrew and Hebrew, and the cultural lesson we speak in English, and then we picked all sorts of things. As a matter of fact, I had on Monday actually, I had the guest. I have a daughter that I adopted. She's Ethiopian in Israel. She's married now. She has kids. She's a teacher herself. And she was our guest in the class, actually, because I did the whole unit about the Ethiopian because of the Black History Month.
Right.
So we introduced the Ethiopian Jews in Israel, and she was one of our guests on Monday.
But isn't it different when you're teaching like let's say kids that age in Israel and they're coming from a home where, let's say, they speak Hebrew already?
No, it is very different because the Israeli kids are immersed in the language every day. And that's why I sometimes have difficulties when I choose videos from Israel, because they are made for the Israeli children who know a lot of other words.
Right.
So it's very challenging from this perspective, but we're supposed to show the modern Israel, modern language, the modern culture, the way it is today.
Yeah.
How many Jewish kids do you teach? What do you know, like the percentage? Or
there are some Jewish kids. The percentage is very, very small. Okay. Most of the children in this school are African Americans. They come because it's a charter school. There are certain laws for a charter school, so they come from various neighborhoods in the city. I have maybe out in the kindergarten. Maybe I have out of the 110. Maybe I have 15 Jewish kids.
And the students are all interested in Hebrew?
Yes. I have Muslims, I have Christians, I have and the parents are very excited about it, very, very excited about it. When we had the 2 days of we had the twice conferences during this year. I had throughout the day I had parents every 10 minutes with 5 minutes in between. And it was supposed to be 1 day. For me, it was like 2 days because there were so many parents who were interested to know how their kids are doing and ask me questions about the language. I mean, it's very interesting. It really gives a very good exposure to Israel and to the culture and to the language, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
When you teach the vowels, do you go into detail about like the different ones and like maybe like the history even of the vowels? Or
okay, so first of all, I teach kindergarten, so we don't teach any writing or reading in kindergarten. So I don't teach vowels. Okay. But I don't teach writing at all. I mean, it's mainly speaking. But the way the curriculum is built is that all the words that they're learning with me in kindergarten, when they go to first grade, that's what they start learning how to read and how to write.
Well, just as an Israeli teacher, I want to ask you, what's the difference between like a kamatz and a patach? Like, are there rules? Like, do you know when to use each one, or is it?
Well, listen, when I did the bagrut, if you would have asked me when I was in high school, I would have given you all the answers. But like most Israelis, I will tell you, no, I don't. I mean, if you will ask me to write something and to know if it's, I don't remember any of the grammar rule. I studied them for the bagrut in Dikduk, and once I was done, it all went away.
But I just think it's so interesting. Sorry.
No, it's not only this. I read all the books I read in Hebrew because I really enjoy reading, and I enjoy reading them in Hebrew because that's where I can connect better. And I read without vowels. So for me, I haven't seen vowels for I don't know how many years. So naturally, I don't remember the rules and I wouldn't know. But when I have to write something in the classroom, and by the way, when I was educational director, and also when I spoke with my teachers, I said, as a teacher, if you write something with vowels, I would go to the dictionary and check how to write it to make sure it's written correctly.
Right.
Because that was very important for me, and that's what I asked my teachers to do as well.
Right. I just think it's so interesting though, because even the rules, let's say that they teach in Hebrew about it's a lot of it's like very new stuff, isn't it? It's like there's kind of two things. There's like the more modern Hebrew stuff, and then there's the.
No, I don't think so, because the rules, I don't know if you did a bagrut in Israel or not, but in one of the things that you do in the bagrut in Israel is that they give you a whole page written without vowels, and in the test is for you to put the vowels into the words.
Wow.
And you have to know all the rules. I mean, that was bagrut in Dikduk in Israel. Right. So we had to know all the rules, when is if it's a shvanach or shvana, if it's we had to beged kefet berosh milah. I mean, we had all sorts of signs and stuff, and I knew all of this. I didn't get a very good grade. I got 80, but once it was done, and most of the Israelis, unless you're a teacher who teaches Dikduk, you can ask any Israeli. Most of Israelis will not be able to put the correct vowels.
Right.
What age do you take that exam in Israel?
When I was in the high school, it was the first year that we took it at the age of 17 at junior high. Shvi'it, it's called in Israel. The seventh. Yeah.
Wow, it's all so interesting. We might have to have you back for a special vowel episode.
Just let me know before so I can practice, okay?
Yeah. We'll have a test at the end.
Okay.
So are there any educators that you particularly admire?
I have one teacher that I really, I think one of the reasons I became a teacher is because of her. I had a teacher in elementary school, and something she did was something that really touched me, and really we had a test. It was in 7th grade. We had a test, and more than half of the class failed the test. And the teacher came to the class to give us the test back, and the first thing she did, she started crying in front of all of us.
Oh my God.
And we were all like looking at her. I said, what did we do? And then she said, I failed. I really failed. Oh. She cried and said, I failed. How is it possible that more than half of the kids failed this test? I must have done something wrong. And that was, I said, wow, and I remember it until today. And, I grew up in Petach Tikva. In the neighborhood where I grew up, I still have all of my friends from childhood that I'm in touch with, because we lived in the same neighborhood. We went to school. We went to high school, to the same high school. We did the homework, and we went down to play every day. And I was in Israel. It was 2 years ago, and we all got together for dinner, and we decided to contact the teachers. And she came. Her name is Zohara. She came to the dinner with us, and we talked and everything. And then I said to her, listen, I have to tell you this story. One of the reasons I became a teacher is because what you did in that day. And she said, you remember that? I said, do I remember that? I mean, that was, it was marked in my life forever.
Wow.
To see a teacher standing in front of the class, and instead of saying, you didn't study, you didn't do your work, she said, I did something wrong. I did not teach the material the way I had to teach it, and that's why you failed. And that for me was the motto, and that's what carried me as an educator as well throughout my life.
Wow. Okay, so obviously the word chinuch, education, is a bit of like an amorphous term. So how do you define education or chinuch?
Okay, so we were speaking about the Hebrew language. So I have to tell you that as far as I'm concerned, the Hebrew language is almost like a magical language. You see, every letter in the language, and even the vowels, by the way, every letter in this language has it's not just a letter. It's not like an A, B, C. I mean, every letter in the Hebrew language has such a deep meaning. And when you put them together, it becomes the same thing. So chinuch is chet nun chaf, and there is so many words that are connected with the word chinuch. You have the word. By the way, you know, the first place in the Bible where you hear the word chinuch is actually related to Cain, which is interesting. You know, Cain's son, his name was Hanoch. And it's very interesting that Cain, the one who walked around with a sign about what he did, he calls his child Hanoch, right, which is from the same root. So for me, Chinuch is about values, is about transmitting values first and for all. And another word that is interesting that comes from Chinuch, from Chet Nun Chaf, is Chanichaim. You know what Chanichaim is?
No.
The gum in your mouth that hold your teeth.
Oh, interesting.
So to be able, Chanichaim is the gum that hold your teeth, you know, and in order to have strong teeth, you have to have very, very good foundation. So
Chinuch, that makes sense.
Chinuch is about foundation as well. Is you start from very, very young and you build on it. And again, for me, chinuch is a lot about values. You know, math and all of this is very, very important. But to be a person, for me, in life is very, very important. Another word that is that is connected with chinuch is, it is Chanukat Bayit, Chanukah, נכון? Right. And Chanukat Bayit is a dedication of a house, of a building, of something that is material more than even spiritual. And so chinuch for me is really a foundation of a person, really. It's what the person absorbs throughout life from being very, very young and all life, you know, it doesn't stop. It can be in a classroom, it can be in the street, it can be from different things, from things you see, from things you hear. But for me, it's very, very connected with values as being the most important part of any education or chinuch. That's chinuch for me.
So to jump off of that, and you mentioned the foundation, how do you think we can best prepare our students, our children, to develop a proper Torah foundation?
Okay, so first we have to define Torah. Because Torah also is a very, very big word. So when you say Torah, some people think about the 5 books of Moses. When you say Torah natan lanu Moshe miSinai, so you can think about the commandments, the 10 commandments. How we teach, the best way to teach, first of all, is to model it. You know, for a student to believe in what it is that you teach, you yourself as a teacher, you have to believe in what you're saying. Right. And that's one of the challenges also that we have in Jewish education is that we need to have teachers, but we really need to have teachers that really believe in what they teach. Because once you believe in what you teach, then the student will take it that way, and it will be inculcated in the student. So you have to be a good person if you want to teach somebody else to be a good person. You have to be able to listen if you want to teach somebody else to listen. You have to demonstrate and be a person that can give, a person that can care if you want to teach care to somebody else. And that's for me what's important. And if we have educators like this, then you can teach absolutely anything. I mean,
so what do you think about like if you're teaching the students Torah, and do you teach Torah mina shamayim, or like there's a big difference if like the teacher is going to say that this is mina shamayim versus this is not mina shamayim, right?
Yeah. So you know what we have to. We have to first of all we have to decide who we are teaching. Okay, because there is a question about God, for example, because when you say Torah, there is God in it, and it's going to be different when you teach it to a young child. You see, I don't believe, for example, I don't believe in teaching a very young child the fact that God is everywhere. How can a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old can understand what does it mean God is everywhere?
Right.
I can hardly understand it. So what? Just think about it. You talk to a 5-year-old and you say, God is everywhere. What does it mean? God is everywhere. So for me, for example, because if you look at the Torah, I mean, if we talk at the Torah about the book and the stories in the Torah, there are many ugly stories in there. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So when you teach children, for example, about God, if you want to teach the values that come from the Torah about God, for very young children, I will teach Eloi Avraham, Eloi Yitzchak, Eloi Yaakov. I will teach the nice stories of the Bibles, the miracles. This is things that young children can relate to.
Right.
Okay. So I will stick with that. I will stick, with those stories. I will stick with stories that the kids can understand, that can relate to. When you want to teach values, it has to be something that a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old can say, yes, I can do that.
Definitely.
Okay? And that's what you do also with the stories from the Bible. You find stories that the kids can relate to. I mean, you're not going to tell them, even the rabbis, how many rabbis stand in front of the congregation and tell them the story of Dina? Or discuss the story of Dina in the congregation as a sermon?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think about the age of the child. You have to think about the who you're talking to. I mean, so I was thinking about it. I was saying, so when you're talking to a young child, you can ask the young child. You can ask, how do you talk about God, for example, or everything that is related to God. When you talk to an older child, you can ask, how do you listen, or how do you answer about God? When you become a 7th grader and you're before bar mitzvah, hopefully you had some education. You must have some question at that point, okay? And then you have to ask yourself, how do you answer those questions?
Yeah.
And later on, when you become an adult, you ask yourself, how do I feel about that?
Right.
Okay, how do I feel about God? How do I feel about the stories that I'm reading? Is it mishamayim? Is it not mishamayim? If with a young child, I'm not even going to get there, quite frankly, because what does it mean, mishamayim? If you don't know, if you don't have the feeling yet of who God is for you, then how can you even answer this question?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you mentioned the story of the students who failed the test. Have you ever experienced a challenge like that, or what's the biggest challenge that you faced as an educator?
The biggest challenge that I face, and I'll be honest with you, I'm when you're immersed in the Jewish education world, it's like being in the forest and not seeing the forest. You're right in it. You don't get the chance to even think about it. And so I'll be honest with you. I went with the flow pretty much. I went with the flow, but I tried to I'm an out of the box kind of a person. Okay, so I did what I felt at that moment. I'm doing the best. Some of my students became rabbis, were ordained as rabbis. I'm not taking any credit for that, because those students came from homes that I knew that will happen. So the credit has to go to the families, because I do believe that the foundation comes at home and not in the Hebrew school specifically, and not even in the day school, because the day schools today are not what they used to be either. But when I look at it today, now that I stepped out of it, the challenges that I have as an educator in a religious school setting is the fact that there was a huge disconnect between what I was doing and what I was trying to do and what I was trying to teach, and with the way that people were living and the way people reacted for that. It arrived to the point that I felt that we are like a factory of bar and bat mitzvah, okay, because that's what everybody cared about, okay. Right. And can you read the Haftarah? Can you read the Torah? Doesn't matter that you don't understand a word of what it is that you're saying, but right. You can read it, okay. You know how to read it. So now that I'm out of it, quite frankly, and I wrote an article, I think I sent it to you to read.
Send it to me.
So I feel that in order to narrow the gap between this disconnect that I'm talking about, this teaching in the school, and because Judaism is a way of life. It's not a story. It's not something you read in a book. It's not something somebody tells you about. It's a way of living. And I believe that today there is such a cut between what we're doing in the classroom and what's supposed to be done is there is a huge disconnect. And don't forget, I mean, the Hebrew school that we're talking about, if we're talking about Hebrew school, for example, the way that Hebrew school operates right now is the way that Hebrew school operated for 100 years now. Okay, so we're talking about families that came from Europe, and most of them were already traditional. People used to go to synagogue, so coming three times a week to a Hebrew school was okay because most of the kids got everything at home.
Right.
This is not the case anymore.
Totally.
I think the problem today is that people don't have any tradition. They don't have a tradition, because what really brings the religion together is really a tradition, because there is no right Judaism and wrong Judaism, okay? I mean, there isn't, I'm doing this, I'm right, I'm more Jewish than you are, and you're less Jewish than I am.
Wow.
It comes, at the end, it comes to the fact that there are traditions. And I believe that Jewish education right now should concentrate on that. Try to talk to families and help the families to build their own tradition. Obviously, a tradition that is going to be based on something. It can be one little thing that they kept from the past, from their family, and then they will build their own tradition. And it can start in different families will start in different places, and it's okay. But at least to give them the hand to build a tradition, because otherwise, whatever it is that they're going to be learning in the school will have no meaning whatsoever.
It's true. I love that you said that, because it is so important to make a point of that disconnect, that, it's one thing if you're teaching in Hebrew school or day school or whatever, all of these wonderful things about Judaism, but if there's no tradition, if there's no connection at home, there's no guarantee that they're going to even want to continue and find it inspiring for them.
There is a huge disconnect between tradition and renewal. Everybody wants something new. Yeah. Everybody wants a change. Okay, so right now the disconnect is so big, and I think that everybody is very comfortable. Most educators now are very comfortable with what we're doing. We've been doing it for years. Okay, let's teach them how to read. Let's teach them. Let's tell them to come 10 times to the synagogue before their bar mitzvah. Let's show them the Haftarah. Let's put them in front of the Torah. How many of those kids that did the bar mitzvah, you see them in the synagogue today? How many of them?
Right.
Not even a handful.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you have any traditions that you have from your family in Turkey?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, I was born in Turkey, and in 1999, I received the fax. I woke up in the morning, I went downstairs to my husband's office, and the whole office, the floor was filled. Remember that fax machine that have this rolled paper? Okay. So the whole roll of paper was on the floor, and I picked it up and I look and I see the entire Berman House catalog on the floor and then I arrived to the beginning of it, and it says, we heard that you are a director of a school. My name is Sarah. I'm the vice president for education from the community of Izmir in Turkey. Wow. We have 130 children. We want to open a school, and we heard that you're an education director. Can you help us pick up books for the school? So I wrote back to her and I said, this is not how you do you open a school. You don't just pick up books and you start school. I have several questions to ask you. and I need to know the ages. I need to know. And then I wrote in the bottom, if you would like, I will be more than happy to come and help you. So I received the fax the next day. Can you come, really? So I picked up one suitcase for myself, and I contacted Berman House, and I told them what I'm doing. They sent me books, and I had one suitcase full of Berman House books, and I traveled to Izmir, to Turkey, for the first time since I was there when I was 2.5 months old.
Wow.
And I arrived there, and I spent the whole week there. And you know what I did the first 3 days that I was there? The first 3 days, I spoke with the teachers. They were all volunteers. They were not teachers. They had no idea from anything, okay, because they never grew up in it. I'm also traditional. I said to them, the first 3 days, you know what we're going to do is we're going to talk to the elderly of the community. And I want to talk to you as well. And I want you to tell, we're going to go holiday by holiday, and we're going to try to figure out how you celebrate your holiday. Because all the books that I brought from Berman House were all Ashkenazic, okay? Do you know that in Turkey they have never seen a braided challah? There is no braided challah.
What is it?
What does it look like?
They have a rosca. It's called rosca de novia. The rosca de novia is the bread, is a sweet bread that you made for the bride. You know why they do it on Friday? You know why they do it on Friday night? Because in Jewish mysticism, Friday night is the wedding of God with the people of Israel.
Right.
That's the Chadodi, Chad Kala, okay? So the traditional bread, the traditional challah bread in Turkey was a rosca de novia. It's a bread that you made for the bride. That's what they eat on Friday night.
Oh my gosh. That is so fascinating.
They still have the sabra hummus though, right?
No, they don't. They have the burekas. That's what we did for 3 days. And I said to them, listen, use these books, because there was somebody who was going to translate the book from English to Turkish. And I said to them, use this book as a foundation. But we here are going to write this week. We're going to write exactly what we're going to do for each and one of the holidays, according to what you do here. And I will tell you, on Pesach, the only thing I buy, you see, I don't change the dishes in the house because that wasn't my tradition. We didn't change dishes in the house or anything. But the only thing we did is we cleaned everything. We cleaned the house. We cleaned the bread out of the kitchen and everything. And everything we cook, until today, that's what I do. We cook only with matzah. We don't buy pasta at the supermarket that is made from matzah flour.
All the fancy things.
Exactly. We make everything only out of matzah. And that's all I have in the kitchen. I have matzah, and that's all we eat.
Wow.
And that's what we did actually in Turkey. We built a school with the customs and the tradition of the people. I wouldn't teach them to bake a challah bread, a braided challah bread for Friday. We did the rosca for Friday. Right. So, but that's what I mean. And a lot of families, they don't even know that they have those traditions.
True.
Maybe in the closet there is an old, a talit bag that is laying from a great grandfather. Bring it out. Talk about it. Say, who is this great grandfather? What did he do? Where did he live? Why did he do that? And then you're going to see stories are going to start coming out. And this aunt told me that we used to do this. And that's how you build the tradition. And then you decide, you know what? This year I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 things out of this tradition. Something that are comfortable, that I can do it, that I can commit to. Isn't this more meaningful for a child or for a family to experience Judaism?
Yeah, well, it ties into, we're learning so much about crypto Jews now, and Jews that had to hide their Judaism because they were escaping the Inquisition or all these things. And you mentioned tradition, and so many of them had 1 or 2 things that their grandmother did or great-great-grandparents did, and they held on to that. So I just love that you said that, because
and some of them don't even know.
Yeah,
that's right. Some of them don't even know why they're doing it. You know, and it's interesting because I've been watching on Netflix. There was a a Turkish series about the beginning of Islam, for example, and how the how do you call it? In Turkey, the rulers in Turkey, the Ottoman empires, during the Ottoman Empire, before the Ottoman Empire, how the whole thing started. And if you look at this series, you're going to see, for example, how they start eating there. They do a motzi. They don't say a motzi lecha min haaretz, but the first thing that before they start eating, they bless the bread. You know, there are so many things that I'm looking at. And for example, the traditional thing about the smell, you know, that the smell in Judaism is very, very important, because it's the only sense that did not participate in the sin of the Garden of Eden. The taste, the vision, everything, but the smell is the only one that was not part of this whole thing. And if you look at the Turkish people, for example, the smell is something very, very important for them. When somebody dies, they keep the clothing of that person and they smell it. They keep it so they can just smell it. So there are many, many traditions like this, and people can discover. I never paid attention to it, but suddenly things came floating. But that's what I mean. That's what Jewish education needs to be right now. Jewish education needs to be today helping families to create their own tradition, not to create it from nothing, but to create it for something that they already have in their homes.
So Dina, I'm just curious, is that related, what you mentioned there, to the Donmeh? I heard there's like this group, the Don. Yeah. They're like the
Donmeh. That's related to Shabtai Tzvi. Okay, you know the story of the Donmehs?
A little bit.
Okay, so you know the story of Shabtai Tzvi?
Yes.
The false messiah?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so Shabtai Tzvi is from Izmir. It's from the place where I was born. And I think there is a little bit of his neshama in me, because there is so many things that not what he did, God forbid, but many other things. By the way, the Jews of Izmir, they don't even want to mention his name because they feel very, very embarrassed. So the Donmez are really there are many of them in Turkey. Many of them in Turkey that are the Jews that converted to Islam because of Shabtai Tzvi. Because when he converted to Islam, they all followed him. And they also the same thing. They have all sorts of traditions at home that are Jewish tradition. Some of them light candles on Shabbat.
Right.
And so it's very interesting. There is a book that came out in Turkey. It was not translated yet. A colleague of mine from Turkey actually told me about it, and she said that it makes making a lot of waves there, because he did a big research to find out some of the very, very important people in Turkey that actually are Donmez.
Wow.
The father was Jewish, and according to Jewish halacha, af al pi shechata Israel, that means that they're all Jewish.
Yeah, no,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. So how do you stay motivated as an educator with all those challenges?
Okay, so as you can see, I'm a little bit away from Jewish education these days, unfortunately, not by my choice, but we're not going to get into that. Well,
you just educated us, so you're still in it.
No, I'm very passionate by that. I'm interested. I continue my studies for a doctorate in Jewish studies. My specialty is Jewish mysticism, actually, and I did do some discoveries and wrote some papers about it. But how do I keep motivated? I continue to read the Torah and find the mysteries of the Torah, because it's full of mysteries, and every time I discover something new. I write a lot, and I like to talk about it with people who are interested to talk about it, and that's how I get motivated.
Yeah, and soon you'll reveal yourself as the Messiah, right?
Oh no. Far from that. Far from that. But one of the things that I learned is that you have to always listen and pay attention, because everything that you hear has some kind of a meaning, even if you don't think it has any meaning, but something comes out of it at some point. So I pay attention very well.
That is great advice. What other advice would you give to new educators who are just beginning their journeys in the field?
Think why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just do it, okay? So before you get into a class or you teach, think about why you're teaching it, who you're teaching it to. How do you feel about your teaching? And this is something very, very important, because I believe it came to the point where some people are just doing it because we did it and that's how it's supposed to be done. Ask yourself questions. I believe, for example, with my love to Israel, I believe that I wanted every teacher in my school to be in Israel, not to teach Israel from a book, but teach Israel from experience. Yeah. So I organized 3 trips for my teacher. Every teacher in my school at TBS was in Israel during the time that I was there, most of the time, because sometimes I got new teachers in between the trips. And the last trip that I did was a trip that was done the first time ever. Is I wanted to join the Edim B'Madim. Do you know what Edim B'Madim is?
No, what is that?
Edim B'Madim are the Israeli IDF sends officers from the army to Poland for a week to travel between the concentration camps and so forth. And I wanted to take my teachers to go with them. So for several months, I was trying to connect with the person who organizes it in the IDF, and finally I got to her. And the first question she asked me, she said, "Why do you want to do it?" And I said to her, "Because we're doing exactly what you're doing, what the soldier in Israel." She said, "How so?" I said to her, "Well, you defend Israel in the borders. We defend Israel in the classroom."
America, yeah, for sure.
We're doing exactly the same thing. So she really liked it, and she said, "You know what? Nobody ever done it, but we'll take your group with us." And we joined them. We flew to Poland, and we spent the whole week with the IDF in their buses, and we flew back with them to Israel. And that's what I would tell the educators. Think out of the box. Think why you are doing it. Think who are the students that are in your classroom. What do you think that these students are going to think 5 years from now about what it is that you're teaching?
Makes sense.
But the most important question, why are you doing it? Why are you teaching what it is that you're teaching? How relevant it is to the children that are there? And I think that's where I am. And I really, really hope the Jewish education will make a little shift and change, because if this, I don't think that what's happening right now, it's the right thing.
Yeah, I totally get that. Now we have young children, and we both have a love of Hebrew. What do you think is the best way, I guess, to help our students and or our children to be comfortable with Hebrew and really learn the Hebrew language?
Try to immerse them as much as you can. Put the Hebrew songs on, talk to them in Hebrew. I mean, as comfortable as you are, speak with them in Hebrew. Travel to Israel, spend some time in Israel if you can. I mean, the secret for learning a language is really to be immersed in the language. That's why when I was the director also at TBS, I took away the conversational Hebrew out of the curriculum, because twice a week, half an hour, you don't learn a language.
Right.
And I thought that it would be a waste of time if I can take something else and bring it to the curriculum, teaching them how to go to the supermarket and buy tomatoes in Hebrew. What is it going to give them? I mean, and not only this, they like a week later, they'll forget the whole thing because they would never say it again. Yeah. So immersing somebody in the language. That's the best way. That's why this charter school, we have Hebrew every day. Okay, the children have Hebrew every day, and that's not even the best. I mean, the best is to be in Israel and speak the language, but
of course.
but that's why if you're comfortable with the language, speak to your children as much as you can in Hebrew. Use a lot of songs and activities that you can bring the language in. That's the best way to go.
How are you doing with all the COVID stuff? Are the kids wearing masks? Is it affecting your?
So we were in Zoom until this week. Next week on Monday, the kids are coming into class. Hebrew is going to continue to be on Zoom for the simple reason that it's very difficult to teach a language when your mouth is covered.
That makes sense.
And so we prefer to teach Hebrew and continue to teach Hebrew on Zoom, so our face can, not only this, expressions are very important, and
that's
with the language
true.
and the mouth. So we are continuing to, Hebrew is going to be continued to be taught in Zoom, but all the other subjects, they're coming to class. And we're going to be in the building, so we're actually going to be seeing our kids for the first time. I'm very, very excited. I'm going to really see them in person, but teaching is going to still continue on Zoom.
Wow. Oh, that's exciting, though. You'll get to see.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really can't wait.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm just curious, what do you think successful Jewish education is going to look like in the future?
I think I touched on that, and that's what I said. I think that the successful Jewish education, first of all, like I said about chinuch, values are very, very important. I think that's what our Torah, if we're talking about chinuch shel Torah, it's all about. It's about mainly about values. And again, I would say again, I mean, we have to bring tradition back. We have to bring Jewish education to the families, not by making, in my master's degree, my dissertation was about family education. And at that time, what did I know? It was about doing program where the parents will come to the Hebrew school on Sunday and they're going to participate in the thing. That's BS, quite frankly. I mean, today that I look at it, I mean, I was very excited about it then, but today that I look at it, we have to really speak seriously with the families and seriously bring, maybe if bar mitzvah still is the carrots that brings them into the synagogue, then try to find things that you can really have the families involved as well, in order to find those traditions. And maybe instead of having classes by first grade, second grade, third grade, having classes by families, and those take several families together and try to figure out if they have the same starting point, wherever it is that they want to jump from, in order to be able to create some kind of a tradition, maybe as a chavura. Maybe that's the way the school needs to look at, as a family unit rather than as a grade level. Okay, this is first grade, second grade. So bringing back Judaism into the family, into the home in that way, rather than having Judaism just existing in the synagogue and just existing in the classroom. I think so. I mean, they're very, very smart educators, and I'm sure that maybe some of them are working on it. I don't know. I've been part of my work at Temple Beth Sholom. I was also involved as a mentor in the Leadership Institute out of New York. I mentored a bunch of directors, and every director I mentored for 2 years. So I got to really see a little bit what's happening in the reform movement, in the Reconstructionist movement, because it wasn't just the conservative movement, and we were discussing a lot of those issues. But I think also another thing that is very, very important, I really would love the rabbis to give more values to the educators. Mm-hmm. Okay, it seems like that there is also this big disconnect between the rabbis in the synagogue, the educators, and the education director. to give you just an example that really upsets me a lot, and I spoke about it, is when a child stand up on the bima for his bar and bat mitzvah, how many kids actually say thank you to my teachers in the Hebrew school who taught me how to read and write?
Mm-hmm.
Almost none of them. Who are they thinking? They're thinking the rabbi, they're thinking the cantor, they're thinking, okay, they're very, very important, don't get me wrong. As leadership, they're very, very important. But this child who's standing up on the bima did not get there because of a rabbi or he got there because of the teacher in the classroom and because of the education director. And I think in the synagogues, not too much credit is given to those people. And I think that could help as well.
Right.
And I hope that all the rabbis that hear it will forgive me, but that's really how I feel.
Yeah. Dina, this was such a pleasure to have you on. You know, we have a good educator because you can you feel yourself getting educated. And we said we were going to come out. We said we were going to come out here and get the gems, and I feel like there's gems everywhere. We're going to have to go back and pick them all up.
Thank you.
Just so much to think about. And we're really happy you were here. We want to ask if there's anything else you want to add before we go. And then I was going to ask you when we're going to end up in Israel, but I honestly feel like you're here on a mission, teaching the students here. So
I am. I feel that way. I never thought that I will do it in this way, but you know what? Life is full of surprises, and I just get excited when something like this happened that you especially didn't expect.
It really is so cool what you're
doing. I feel very fulfilled. I feel very, very happy about what I'm doing, even though it's difficult for me because I'm here all by myself. My husband is in Korea. I could have been there with him, but I feel I'm doing something very important. So it's worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to have to get back in touch with you and maybe do some consulting with you about some ideas we have and some ideas that you gave us.
I would love to. Anything that has to do with education, Jewish education, it's my passion. And I really, really hope that changes are going to happen in Jewish education because we are not going in the right direction, unfortunately.
We hope so too. And seriously, we are so honored that you agreed to come and join our podcast today. And we really learned so much from you. And it's so nice to talk with you again. It's been so long.
Thank you. I'm honored. Anytime. I hope that we'll be in touch again. I would really love to talk to you.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, Dina. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All the best and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Take good care of the wonderful children and take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too. All the best.
Later. Bye.
Later.